بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد.
Hello, welcome to Islamic Civilization, this time session 23 that deals with three Islamic empires. And the three Islamic empires that we are going to be talking about were in the period of the late Middle Ages and early modern period. So let's see what we have. Islamic Civilization, session 23, three Muslim empires. Let's see what we have in the objectives. Three Muslim empires rose after the Crusaders and the Mongols left the region, and that region would be the Middle East and the Holy Land, Ottomans, and so we would see the rise of the Ottomans in Turkey, Balkans. Balkans is now called Eastern Europe, or Eastern Europe is now called Balkans also, and in the Holy Land. So that was the rise of the Ottomans, and then the rise of the Safavids, another dynasty, another empire in Iran and the Caucasus Mountains, and the rise of the Mughals in India, Pakistan, and modern-day Afghanistan. So in this session, session 23, we would see the rise of the three Islamic empires or Muslim empires. They belong to different, diverse ethnic backgrounds, but they were united in Islam finally. Okay, so different ethnicities, different languages, all three, one Turkish, the other Iranian or Persian, the other one is Indian, but they were all united in one religion, and that was the common theme between them, religion of Islam. So let's see the Ottomans, the Mughals, and the Safavid empires. That's the three empires we're going to be talking about. Let's go back to when we talked about the Crusades from 1095 to 1271. And the immediate cause that we talked about was about the Greek Christian Byzantine Empire that had to face its subject Seljuk Turks rising and attacking. We talked about that how the Seljuk Turks were rising against the Byzantine Empire because they did not want to live under them. And so the Seljuk Turks, they fought the Byzantine Empire in 1071 in the Battle of Manzikert, and the Seljuk Turks won against the great empire. Turks took most of the modern-day Turkey from the Greek Byzantine Empire. The empire eventually, the Byzantine Empire eventually fell to the Turks in 1453. Now, the Byzantine Empire and the Seljuk Turks, we talked about this when we said that Alp Arslan, the Seljuk leader, winner of the Battle of the Manzikert in 1071, he humiliated Romanos. The fourth, the Byzantine Empire, and again and again the Byzantine Empire asked for help, asked the Pope, the Roman Catholic Church, to help the Christian in Eastern Europe against the rising Muslim tide especially of the Seljuk Turks, and their, it started in fact the Crusades. That was the main point in the Crusades. What you're looking at is the Byzantine Empire, okay? And as you see it, it's stretching, from North Africa in the south, Eastern Europe in the northeast, and then all the way, down to Egypt and Syria. That was a great empire of the Byzantine Empire. But the Turks, the Seljuk Turks, they were also struggling against the empire. And eventually, the Ottoman Empire would rise somewhere around 1300. Now, there is the story about when it comes to the Ottoman Empire, especially about the founding father of the empire, Osman I. There are historians who say he did not really exist. Later on, the leader of the empire, as it rose to power, they created this myth that yes, there was a person by the name of Osman I. And so some, especially the European historian, believe that was a myth. There was never a person by the name of Osman who started this empire, later on to be known after him as the Ottoman Empire. But so for the Turkish historiography is concerned and historians are concerned, they say no, there was a person by that name whose image, however, that you will see was created later on. So whatever the case may be, whether there was Osman or not, at least there was a big empire that nobody could miss, and everybody remembered it, Ottoman Empire that became known after him. So let's see. The Ottoman Empire, they were a Turkish ruling dynasty. They replaced the 1,000-year-old Greek Orthodox Byzantine Empire in the Middle East and Eastern Europe. So there you see the fall of one empire, the fall of the Byzantine Empire, and the rise of the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire, it stretched from, so for the period is from 1300 to 1922. That is, almost 600 years rule, and that's, that makes it what? The longest empire that came to an end only as the result of the First World War, World War I. So when it comes to these empires, in history you see the rise and fall of the empires. And the rise of one empire, at the ruins of a previous empire who went down. So definitely the fall of one empire leads to the rise of another empire. Now the empire that rose has to keep itself in power, otherwise there would be other empires that would compete for the same territory, for the same people. And so two empires or three empires, they do not coexist. They always fight. The rise is, maybe given, but then the fall is also given. Just as an empire rises, it can also fall down. And that is exactly what happened to empire after empire. So you see the rise of one empire, the same empire goes down, two other rise. And so when they go down, three other rise, and that's what you see here with the fall of the Byzantine Empire. You see the rise of another great empire, that was the Ottoman Empire. So that's like a law of physics, rise and fall. Let's see what we have. The Ottoman Empire, and now you see it, huge and big, exactly, if not more, and maybe more. The territory, the area that it covers is more than the area of the Byzantine Empire, and it was built on the ruins of the Byzantine Empire, okay, the Ottoman Empire. So this is the person Osman I, who lived from 1258. Remember 1258? That was the year when the Mongols ruined Baghdad, Iraq, to 1324. So he was born in the year when the Mongols ruined Iraq, Baghdad, the capital city. So he is considered to be the founding father of the Ottoman dynasty, which created the Ottoman Empire. So his name is Osman, and from his name Osman, the European, they got the name of Ottoman. Now this Ottoman Empire, it struggled the most, especially in Eastern Europe, in Balkan, and there you have a first major warfare between the rising Turks and the Eastern European, especially in the Battle of Kosovo. So Prince Murad I, he was pitched against a prince of the Serbians, Prince Lazar, and they both died in this big battle of Kosovo, 1389. And the Battle of Kosovo has created in Serbia, even till this day, a lot of stories, a lot of myths, a lot of legends, and it still serves as a very important battle in the history of the region in Balkans till this day. There are stories, a lot of romanticism there. You see a lady who was looking for, her fiancé, and she stumbled upon this man who needed water, and she asked him what happened to her fiancé, and he said that he died along with his soldiers, and this gentleman also died in the Battle of Kosovo. Till this day, it creates a lot of stories in Serbia, and recently there were big problems in Eastern Europe. Okay. Another battle in Eastern Europe between Sultan Murad II versus Vladislav III, the king of Poland and Hungary. Very powerful man, Vladislav, very powerful. And so he also died, think about it, 20 years old, just like Alexander was 20 years old. He died in the Battle of Varna, a very famous battle. Ottoman Empire further expanded because this, the Kosovars, they lost this battle. And so the Ottomans expanded further in Eastern Europe. There you have the Sultan and the Prince. The Prince died in the battle of Varna, very famous battle. There you have it, the battle, beautiful images. But we need to move on. Muhammad II marched on Constantinople in 1453, another great Sultan. Sultan means the ruler of Ottoman Empire. And there he's marching on Constantinople, the capital of the old Byzantine Empire. And boy, he laid the siege to it. It went for months, the siege, but finally he succeeded and brought the city to its knees. And the result was that he conquered the Constantinople, the capital city of Byzantine Empire. And for that reason, he is called Muhammad II. There is one thing about this taking of the Constantinople, and historians have, comparatively, they have done these studies whose taking of a city was relatively peaceful or more, of a butchery. So when you compare the taking of Constantinople by the Muslims, compare it to the taking of Jerusalem by the Crusaders, definitely the Crusaders turned out to be more of a butchers compared to the Muslims who took Constantinople in a warfare. So there are these comparisons between, who did, the more or the less massacre in the city. So for that reason, the taking of Constantinople is far, a peaceful event than the taking of Jerusalem by the Crusaders, who just butchered everybody, Muslim and Christians and Jews. So let's see further. Then he invited Gennadius Scholarius, and he was a great scholar and the patriarch of Constantinople. Patriarch is the leader of the Greek Orthodox Church. One was in Constantinople, another was in Alexandria. So Muhammad II, he allowed the Orthodox Patriarch to keep religious and legal authority in Constantinople. The people had to, they didn't have to be converted to Islam. They stayed as Christians, and that's what, they had to be ruled by their own religious leaders. And in this case, the Patriarch had to keep his religious and legal authority in the city, and that's how peace was maintained in the city. And there you see, the Sultan meeting the Patriarch, and the two lived quite in peace, especially the two communities, Muslims and Christians. The Ottoman conquest of the Balkan in 1456, and there you have, Muhammad II unsuccessfully laying siege to Belgrade in Bulgaria in 1456. There are historians who tell us that if this Sultan had taken Belgrade, the capital city of Bulgaria, then that would have been the end of Eastern Europe as we know it. But that did not happen. But then the other historians tell us, other sultan also tried to take Vienna, the capital of Austria. If that had succeeded, that would have been definitely the end of everything. I mean, everything in the sense the end of Christianity in Europe. There would have been more Muslims, and so that did not happen. So one of the ifs of the history, Belgrade, very important, because the Sultan, the Turks, Ottoman Turks did not take it. That's why Eastern Europe partially remained Christian, the Greek Orthodox as it is, and those areas that the Muslims, the Ottoman Turks took them, those also converted to Islam, came to Islam, especially Bosnia, Herzegovina, heavily Muslim populated, Albania, heavily Muslim populated. So these regions, Macedonia, Albania, Kosovo, and so there are a lot of places in Eastern Europe that are Muslims, and the coexistence has been, quite fairly peaceful till the fall of the communism in 1990, and then all started the butchery as we know, Serbians, they had to be attacked by United States to stop them from butchering and raping Muslim women, and so that was another, very dark, a period in the history of Eastern Europe after the fall of communism. Let's see further. The Ottoman domain in the Balkans, there you have, you see it. It included most of Eastern Europe, including Greece. Think about it. And Croatia, further west, on the eastern side of the Adriatic Sea. You can go to your own maps in the book or online, and you can find out, where the Balkans or the Eastern European area is or was that came under the Ottoman domain in 1600. So think about it, one time Greece being, a great empire, and now that entire Greece came under the domain of the Ottoman Empire. And as I told you in previous sessions, the Greeks and the Turks, like two different species living side by side, but then that ethnicity was further complicated, and the hostility between the two became further complicated when the Greeks turned to Christianity and the Turks became Muslims. And so it also took a religious turn, the differences or the hostilities between the two of them. So keep in mind, if, till this day, if they don't like each other, there is a huge big history of hostility between the Greeks and the Turks that go, even beyond the religions. Okay, let's see further. Ottoman Empire, as I said, it's huge and big, complete, Mediterranean, and that's why Eastern Mediterranean was, to the European, became known as the Ottoman Lake. And these Ottomans would not allow anyone to come and swim, especially in Eastern Mediterranean. Okay. Staying with Ottoman Empire, the Ottoman capital, Istanbul, was renamed as Istanbul in 1453. Previously, it was known as Constantinople in 330. And it was the former capital of the Greek Byzantine Empire, Constantinople. But when the Turks, they captured it, the Ottomans captured it, they renamed it as Istanbul. A great, strategic location between Europe and Asia, located on the Bosphorus Strait. You can go to the map and find it out, between the Caspian Sea in the north and the Eastern Mediterranean Sea in the south. And that location gave them a great control over the trade that went between Russia and in the Levant. Levant is northwestern part of Syria, modern day Syria. Okay. So a great location for Constantinople, and there you have Constantinople on the Bosphorus Strait. And it was renamed as Istanbul in 1453 when the Turks, the Ottoman Turks, they captured it. And as I said previously, it was known as Constantinople. Ottoman society, let's see what kind of society was. It was definitely multi-ethnic and multi-religious. There were Turks, Greeks, Albanians, Armenians, and Arabs, and they belonged to different faiths: Muslims, Greek Orthodox Christians, Armenian Christians, and Jews. Okay, all living together in Ottoman society. And so the Ottomans, they created a system for the society, was called the millet system, millet. And that millet was that each ethnic, religious, administrative leader was responsible for the law and order in their groups, which means that each religious leader, a Christian religious authority, the Jewish religious authority, and the Muslim religious authority, they were given authority and control over their own people. So Christian would be ruled by Christian, in this case by the Greek Orthodox Church, the Patriarch. Armenian Christian would be ruled by the Armenian Church. Jews would have their own Jewish religious and political leaders, and the Muslim would have their own political leaders called the ulama. Why was that? Because so that no Christian would say, hey, these Muslims are ruling us, or no Jew would say, hey, Muslim or Christians are ruling us. Each one had to be ruled by their own people, and that is how the society was kept so peaceful, during the Ottoman Empire. But, system failed, and it also failed, the millet system. This would be something like in the United States. We have, different communities, ethnic groups coming from different races, not just only the whites and blacks, but also other ethnic groups, the Italians, the Greeks, the British, the Englishmen, the German, the French, the Filipinos, the Japanese, the Chinese. So think about it, if all they have their own, communities, but then that Americanism does not, does not get roots in the communities, and that's what happened to Ottomanism. Ottomanism was not adopted by all the communities. It was adopted only by the Turks, and so that is what eventually ruined the situation in Ottoman Empire, because everybody wanted to go their own way, and that's what happened to it, to the fall of Ottoman Empire. Let's see further. The Ottoman state, it also had a system called Düşürme, child tribute system, in which the Ottomans, they would recruit Christian children from Balkans, Eastern Europe, to serve the Sultan and his state. They would be trained in the Ottoman army and Ottoman administration, and their ages were, it's a disturbing feature of the child tribute in Düşürme, ages from 7 or 10 to 15. And that, in those ages, they would bring children from Eastern Europe, and they would be recruited in the army and in the administration. And they later on, by the age 15, when they finished their recruitment, their training, they were already Muslim. So in a way, they were converted to Islam, and then they reached to the top. That's an amazing story. Okay, loyalty was must. Whether you are a Turk or a Eastern European person, you had to be, very loyal to the Sultan. Also, in this Düşürme child tribute system, it involved temar, land grant. So land would be given to families whose children were recruited by the Sultan, and these children later on would become great officers in the army and in the administration, and they would be called janissaries. And so the system benefited Christian families because they gained land, and the Sultan gained loyalty and recruits from these families, and it became so successful that some Muslim families also faked their boys as Christians so that they would get recruitment for their children and they would get land in reward. And so it was a successful story, but all systems are abused and misused, and that's what happened also to this system. Now moving to another dynasty, the Safavid dynasty. Now, the Safavid, these were Iranian people, which means they did not go, well with the next door people, with the Turks, whose, empire was rising. The Ottoman Empire was on the rise, and so the Ottoman Empire had Persians at one time under their control. And of course, the Persians, they had their own great history, just like the Greeks. And the Persians, you should know, they built the first world empire in the region that stretched not only from the Mount Caucasus and India and Afghanistan and modern day Pakistan, all the way down to the Holy Land. So the Persian Empire, 500 years before the birth of Jesus, this great empire, at least 300 years before the birth of Alexander, before the Greeks could even think of having an empire, the Greeks lived under the Persian Empire 500 years before the birth of Jesus. So this mighty empire, the Persian Empire, collapsed with the rise of the Alexandrian Greek Empire in 200 and 300 years before Jesus, peace be upon him, alayhimus salam. And now there was another empire, the Turkish Ottoman Empire, on the rise. And so the Persian was also rising, and they were living side by side. So eventually they collided. And let's see the history of the two empires. So the Safavid Empire, let's go back. The Safavid movement, Sheikh Safiuddin, a mid-13th century person from 1252 to 1334, and again 1252 is very close to the birth of this great Sufi leader, Sheikh Safiuddin, very close to the sack of Baghdad by the Mongols. Okay? Just like the birth of the great Osman, the founding father of the Ottoman dynasty. So Sheikh Safiuddin was born in those very disturbing times and closer to home, because he was in Azerbaijan, northern Iran, and close to home in Iraq. All that butchery at the hands of the Mongol was going on. So he was a Sufi Muslim mystic leader in northwestern Iran. We don't know much about his early life, but still the people wrote about him. He was recognized for his mystic powers among his fellow, Azeris, also some Kurds, Kurdish people, Turkish people, and Persian people believed in him, in his mystic powers, and that's how he gained power in the region, because he was known as a great charismatic leader. Member of his mystic order, they were called Safaviya. Till this day, they are called Safaviya. And these mystic turned militants in the rising tides of violence of the Crusaders, Mongols, and Ottomans. And as I said previously, that the rise of some people is because of, number one, not just the fall of another dynasty, but also the rise of another dynasty. So whenever a dynasty rises up in power, it makes other people who do not belong to the dynasty, the rising dynasty, the imperial dynasty, people do not belong to them in language, in religion, in ethnicity, in race, and culture. So the rising power of a dynasty, the imperial dynasty, makes other people worry. And they worry for their own safety, protection, the people, the place, their own culture, their own history, their language, or their religion. And so that's why the other people have to be on the watch, so that this rising dynasty may not eat them up completely. And that was the case also between the Persian and the Turks. The Persian did not like the rise of this huge big empire, the Byzantine Empire, and so naturally, the two would collide. Let's see. The Safavid dynasty. It started with the descendant of Safiuddin, a person known by name Shah Ismail. He ruled from 1501 to 1524, not for too long, and there is a reason for that. But the Safavid dynasty ruled for quite some time, up to 1736. He belonged to the Safaviya movement, the Sufi mystic order called Safaviya. He mixed with and united other people, the Shia Muslims in Persian region, so united other tribes under his leadership. He declared Shia Islam as the religion of his Persian state, and this state would become an empire in its own right. And of course, he clashed with the Ottoman Empire in the West. As I said, empires, they do clash. And so let's see that clash. Ottomans versus the Safavids. Keep in mind, both are Muslims, okay? And so it's not just only non-Muslim and Muslim fighting, but Muslim and Muslim also fight. So Ottoman-Safavid hostilities from about 1514 to 1555 for almost, more than quite some time. Ottomans were Turkish Sunni Muslims, just to give you a little bit perspective on their rivalry. The Safavids, they were Persian Shia Muslims. Both are Muslims. The Turks were Sunni and the Persians were Shia. And so it's not only the ethnic difference, but also the sectarian difference between the two, and sometimes that difference make all the difference. Safavids expanded in eastern Anatolia, which is modern-day Turkey, which was home of the Ottoman people, the Turkish people. And they also expanded in southern Iran, in Iraq, and Afghanistan, which is also not too far away from the Ottoman Empire. And so, they threatened the Ottoman Empire in the Middle East. So in this case, amazingly, the Ottoman Empire, which is a bigger power, it just could not digest the rise of a minor empire, in this case, the Persian Safavid Empire. And so the Ottoman bigger empire felt threatened by the rise of the Safavid Persian Empire, and the two collide. And as you go to the maps, you would see how close the two empires were, and no two empire can ever, live in peace if they are so close. Thank goodness for United States and Soviet Union, the two great superpowers who created a nightmare between the two countries, because there was every chance of the two, going into nuclear warfare. And the reason was each one felt threatened by the presence of the other. So one has to go down, to keep the other up. And that's what happened. United States remained up and Soviet Union went down the drain. And so that happens to all empires, whether they have the same religion or different religion or whatever the race. History goes beyond ethnicity, race, and region and religion. And that's one of the cases you see here. Okay, let's see further. And there I say, if you look at the map of the two, between the Caspian Sea and the Mediterranean Sea and the Black Sea and the, Red Sea and the Persian Gulf, and between all these body waters, there is a common ground between the two, and that common ground was the most dangerous ground between the two rising empires, especially in Iraq. The Ottomans wanted Iraq and, to themselves. The Iranian wanted that area to themselves, and the two would collide. Then this map gives you also, in the east, you see another great empire that we won't talk about, the Uzbeks, Muslims. Then in the middle, the yellow or the orange color is that of the Safavids, and in the west to the Mediterranean, the blue, that is the Ottoman Empire, and definitely they collided in that area. Okay. Ottoman Selim, the Sultan Selim I, he had a great rival, Safavid Shah Ismail. Both were great, ruler of their times, and boy, they could not come to terms, and the result was a great battle of Chaldiran in 1514. And that battle also has created a lot of myth and stories and legends, and there you have the battle between the two. Okay. Ottomans won the battle of Chaldiran, and then there, later on a memorial was erected, constructed on the place, the battlefield, just to commemorate, the victory of the Ottomans over the Persian over the Persian Safavid Empire. And this area, this place, the Battle of Chaldiran took place in the eastern part of modern-day Turkey, a province called Van, V-A-N. Some people call it also Bam. And so this was the Ottoman victory over the Persians, the Safavid Empire in 1514, the Battle of Chaldiran, very famous battle. Let's see the Safavid state. The elites were called Qizilbash. Qizilbash, these they were elite fighting corps, helped Shah Ismail found Safavid state in Iran in 1501. Keep in mind the Qizilbash, these were, not like in millions, only a couple of thousand people, but very committed to the leadership of Shah Ismail. And the reason of their commitment was they really believed that Shah Ismail was a great man. And of course he was, no question about it. But think about it, how you perceive a great man. You perceive a great man in terms of politics, and you also perceive the same political personality in terms of religion, that you think that he has powers from God. He's a very powerful man. God speaks through him. God acts through him. He has the divine right, and he has a divine presence, around him. And if you help him, God would help you, these kind of things. So that is how these great fighting force of the Qizilbash people, they thought of this great man, Shah Ismail, as a very, godly person. And if you helped him, you stayed with him, you fought on his side, you will win. And that's how they succeeded in creating the Safavid state under the great leadership of Shah Ismail. So I just wanted to make sure that you understand why the Qizilbash were so strongly supporting Shah Ismail, because of his great religious power that these people felt in their lives and benefited from his power. And so there they created, for him, the great Safavid empire. Let's see further. The Safavid state, multi-ethnic Muslim population they had also. So the major people, just like the Ottomans had Turks in the Safavid state, the major group was that of the Persians, Azeris, some Turks, a lot of Kurds, especially in northwest, and the Circassian people coming from the Caucasus Mountain and modern day, part of Jordan and Syria. The majority people of the Persians, they were Shia, but they also had non-Persian Sunnis. Caucasus Mountain Christians, they also were there, especially Georgian and Armenians. They were also there in the empire. So it was, and there were a lot of inter-ethno-religious marriages, which means, just like in the Ottoman Empire, similarly, in the Safavid Empire, there were intermarriages between Muslims and Christians, Persians and non-Persians. And that helped the Safavid Empire to stay for a longer period because it relied not just only on the Persian Shia, but it could also rely on non-Muslims even, like the Armenians especially, and the Georgians, in the Caucasus. It does not mean that these people would always live under the Persian Empire. No, if you give them a chance and if they get their chance, they would definitely rise against the empire only for one reason, to be free. And so as nobody wants to live under anybody, that's how, is the theme. The word is freedom. Always in history, the Turks did not want to live under the Greeks. Later on, the Greeks would not live to one under the Turks, and so there you would see the rise and fall of empires and people in the region. I just want to make sure that just as the Ottoman state was multi-ethnic, multi-religious, multi-linguistic, similar was the case with the Safavid empire and state. Let's see further. The multi-ethnic Persian Iran, and that color tells you a lot. The green stuff is all Persian and mostly Shia. But then they had also non-Persian Sunnis, and they also had non-Muslims, and they had Persian Sunnis also. So all these colors are basically color of different ethnicities and different sectarian groups and different religions. Safavid Shia state in Iran, Shah Ismail, he ruled from 1501, as I said, to 1524. He declared and turned Iran into a Shia state. So Shia Islam was basically the state religion in Iran. Shia Muslims believe in the same Quran, there are not too many differences between Sunni and Shia. Shia Muslim, they believe in the same Quran and similar Islamic practices as Sunnis. However, Shia believe that only Ahlul Bayt, that is the family of Prophet Muhammad, they had the right to rule, nobody else. And so that's the big difference between the two of them. Shia pilgrims at Imam Ali's mausoleum. As a Sunni, I would love to go there, but then more Shia go there to the Imam Ali's mausoleum and his grave, as Sunnis would do. More Shia would go there. And who was Ali? Ali was a great person. He was the son-in-law of Prophet Muhammad. And there is his grave or mausoleum in Iraq, and that's why you see Iranians coming, to Iraq for that pilgrimage to the site or mausoleum of Imam Ali. Another great person in the history of Islam, and Shia pilgrims also go to Imam Hussein's mausoleum in Iraq. And Imam Hussein was the son of Ali and Fatima, as Fatima was Muhammad's daughter. So Hussein was the grandson of Muhammad, peace be upon him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And there you see also the shrine of Imam Hussein in Karbala in Iraq. All right. Now, I wanted to bring these, group of people, Circassians, some of them Christian and some, of course, Muslim now. And they come from the Caucasus mountainside. There are not too many people, maybe 2 or 3 million people in the region, but also in the history of Iran, they have, their own contribution. And so I wanted to mention them because not even too many Muslims outside Iran, in fact, know them. And so that's why I wanted to bring them in, just for the sake of, both Muslim and non-Muslim audience of this program, that Circassians are Muslims and they have their own mosque and their own, places of worship. And you are looking at one of them. This Circassian mosque is in Syria, and a very beautiful mosque. And if you have, if you ever visit Syria, not now, but later on, then, you should visit this place. Okay. Safavid helped the Mughals, which is the Mughals, they were a dynasty, an empire in further eastern India. And so the reason between why the Safavids would help the Mughals. Well, number one, the Safavids were sandwiched between the Mughals in India in the east and the Turks, the Ottomans in Turkey in the west. So here is Turkey in the west, then next door in the east is Iran, and then next door east in India were the Mughals. And so definitely Iranians wanted to have good relations with the Mughals, and they were also Muslims, Muslim dynasty in India. And so to have good relationship and use that relationship against the Ottomans. But the Mughal were smart people. They would not like to be used against anybody. And they had one time their own problems over Afghanistan between Iran and India, between the Safavid dynasty in Iran and the Mughal dynasty in India. They had problems over Afghanistan. So at one time, Afghanistan was under the control of Iranian Safavid Empire. And now with the rise of the Mughals, they wanted to have Iran under their control, and they would fight. And eventually, the Mughal would get at least the eastern city in Afghanistan, particularly Kandahar, and also later on they would get also Kabul, which is now the capital of Afghanistan, under the Mughal dynasty. And so the Iranian, they realized they could not rule far east as Afghanistan, so they had to let go Kandahar and Kabul, and that's how they became part and parcel of the Mughal Empire in India. Let's see further. So here the Safavid ruler Shah Tahmasp first, a great ruler. He was the ruler of the Persian Empire, the Safavid Empire. He welcomed Humayun, the second Mughal ruler of India, and Humayun was on the run, because of his own enemies in India. And so Humayun needed military and monetary help against his enemies in India. And the only place that he could go to at that time was Shah Tahmasp, in Safavid Iran, the ruler of Iran at that time, and definitely Shah Tahmasp would help him. However, and this is not really true, but some people have written in documents in history of the time that Humayun, Shah Tahmasp, the Persian ruler, gave Humayun, the Mughal ruler, money and weapons and even some of his forces, trainers. But he asked Humayun to do him favor, and that would be that he should promote, the Shia Islam in India, or make sure that Shia Muslim would not be, harmed. And so Humayun agreed to that. But later on, it became a sort of propaganda against Humayun. And that's why he was rumored to have promised Safavid ruler to propagate Shia Islam in India. Whether that is true or not, but the rumor was there. There was another thing about Humayun. Humayun was in great need of weapons because he lost an empire that his father just recently built in India, the Mughal Empire, and he needed every help. And so there are stories that he did not mind even to convert to the Shia form of Islam. Whether he did or not, but unfortunately that is also, it was used against him by his enemies, of course, in Mughal India. So he came, he won back, he got his rule, and later on, he died his own death, as they say, maybe he used drugs and he stumbled out of death, stumbled of something in his palace and he died. So that was the end of Humayun. But he regained his Mughal empire in India against his enemies with the help of the Safavid rulers, for which it is rumored that he propagated Shia Islam in India. Whether that is true or not, at least he got the help, and let's see further. And there you see, Humayun is received by the Safavids, and there's a lot of, fanfare going on and dancing going on. That tells you a lot about that these, you think of them as Muslims living by all the laws of the Sharia, but that's not really true. And so they're, merrymaking and dancing going around and all that. The Safavids were welcomed by the Mughals also, same favor. So Shah Jahan, a Mughal ruler, he welcomed the Persian embassy to come, and have diplomatic relations between Iran and India. Safavid Iran and Mughal India. Safavid helped the Mughals. And in the picture on the right, I don't know if you can see them or not, but I can see them. The gentleman on the top of the mountain, at the back of the mountain, he is holding a gun. Definitely this gun and the gun at the mouth of the building, the entrance to the building, these are weapons that the Mughals got from Safavid Iran. I just wanted to bring these two images to show you that the Mughals did get help in weapons from Iran. Safavid contacted also the Europeans, and here you see Shah Abbas, Safavid ruler of Persia, Iran. He contacted England and France to get weapons and training for his army, and of course he needed every help against the Ottoman Empire. He made alliances with England against the Portuguese presence in the Persian Gulf. Another, rising power in the 16th century, the Portuguese. Remember the Portuguese, the Europeans, among all the Europeans, the Portuguese were the first to go outside Europe, and that is how they were the first to go to Africa, the first to go to India, the first to go even as far east as Japan. And so they made, or they created, what is called the first sea-borne empire. Their empire was on the sea, and that's why it's called the sea-borne empire, empire supported by the sea. The Portuguese, small country compared to next door neighbor, Spain, but that small country did a lot of things. It became a great empire, and eventually, it collapsed at the hands of the Europeans, especially the Spanish and the French, and as well as at the hands of the Englishmen. But the Portuguese did control a huge big place, 100 times bigger than the Portugal itself, and that was Brazil. Until this day, why the people of Brazil speak Portuguese? Because Brazil was once upon a time a colony of the Portuguese. And so these Portuguese, who were not only having rule and control of the huge country of Brazil, they also wanted to have a control of India and the places in Persian Gulf, and that's where the Persian Safavid Empire needed the help of anti-Portuguese European powers, especially England. And so the Persian Safavid Empire allied with the with England to get the Portuguese out of the Persian Gulf, and it worked. Let's see further. Safavid contacted Europeans, and here Shah Abbas first, a Safavid ruler, receiving envoys from Europe and having a sort of a meeting between the two of them. Mughal dynasty, another dynasty, Muslim dynasty in India. As I said, it was a dynasty in India, Muslims ruling India for quite some time, and they were eventually lived in good sort of a relationship with the Iranians, the relationship that the Iranians did not enjoy with the Ottomans. So that's why because the Ottomans were against the Iranian Safavid, the Safavid wanted to have the friendship of the Mughals, and it worked for both the Mughals as well as the Safavids. Let's see further what the Mughals were doing in India. All right. The Mughals in India from 1526 to 1857, almost for 300 years. The Mughals, they were Muslims and Muslim rulers of India, mixed with Mongols and Turkish families. And it is from the term Mongols that we get the word Mughals, but in English it's pronounced Mughals. These days, if the word is M-O-G-A-L, Mughal, that means a very wealthy person, like Ted Turner, the founder of the CNN news work. And so Mughal is, a powerful, wealthy person, and so were the Mughals also, and that's how you get that term. They were Sunni as well as Shia. Okay, this family, the Mughals, they had Sunni members and Shia members in their family mixed with Persian and Turkish languages. In fact, they spoke two languages, Persian and Turkish, because that's how the families came from. Later Mughals, they created a new language to be called Urdu. Urdu itself means army, so it was the language of the army, so to speak, that had different people. And that Urdu is now the official language of Pakistan. And it is also widely spoken in northwestern India. So, Urdu was the creation of the Mughal rule in India. Zahiruddin Muhammad Babur, that was the original, he originally came from Central Asia, replaced a Muslim dynasty in India in 1526. There was already a Muslim family ruling in India, and he replaced them in warfare, of course. Founded the Mughal dynasty in India, the first Mughal ruler of India as he was. He ruled from 1526 to 1530, not for too long. And when he died, he close to his death, he came to know that he realized that India was very hot. He didn't like it. So he said, okay, after I die, just take me back to Kabul and bury me there. And so he's buried there. And when I was in Afghanistan, I had to go to his grave, and I went to his grave. It's in a place called Bagh-e-Babur, the Garden of Babur. And so he is buried in Kabul. And if you go to Afghanistan now, and then these days later on, when it's much more peaceful, you should also go to the Garden of Babur and visit the shrine or the grave, not too big, simple grave of this great man, Zahiruddin Muhammad Babur, the founding father of the Mughal dynasty in India. Let's see further. Mughal rule in India, relatively peaceful, ruling Muslim minority, living among Hindu majority, so they had to be peaceful, followed religiously very enlightened policy. Okay? They respected all Indian religions, recruited talents across religions. The Muslim male could easily marry Hindu female, and there were a lot of romances between the two of them. So these, Muslim and Hindu marriages were quite common in Mughal India. They enjoyed great agricultural prosperity in India, gained enormous revenues from trade, and that's how they became very wealthy. Best known for administrative and artistic innovations, the Mughals. Each Mughal ruler left a personal legacy, especially in terms of art and architecture. Akbar the Great, one of the great rulers of Mughal India, Akbar, he founded a new religion called Deen-e-Ilahi, although a lot of Muslim leaders did not like it, but they couldn't do anything about it. And what he did, he picked good features from almost every religion and mixed them up and created his own religion called Deen-e-Ilahi. He discussed world religions with religious leaders. Also, a unique person for those times, contemporary of two great rulers, Suleiman the Magnificent, the ruler of the Ottoman Empire, and also, look at this, Queen Elizabeth of England, Queen Elizabeth I of England. So these three great rulers, Akbar the Great, Suleiman the Magnificent of Ottoman Empire and Queen Elizabeth of England, they lived in the same period. And he also received embassies from both the Turkish as well as the English ruler. Kept diplomats in Mecca and Medina also. He sent his own embassy to Mecca and Medina, which are, the two great cities of Islam. So he wanted to have a good relationship with the Arabs also. Here you have the picture of the three rulers, Akbar on the left, in the middle, Elizabeth first, and of course, Suleiman the Magnificent. Speaking of Suleiman the Magnificent, if you go to the Congress, United States Congress rotunda, you would also see his portrait, because he is also known as a great lawmaker. And so the United States Congress recognized him as a great lawmaker, and that's where his portrait is. Akbar the Great, he received embassy from Queen Elizabeth. Okay. Now, Mughals were known for love for art, for their love of art. They loved art, and they showed their passion for art in architecture, in painting, literature, and gardens. Unbelievable. The Mughal art is simultaneously Islamic, but also Indian, Persian, and Turkish. So it has, the signature of everything, Islam and ethnicity. They employed artists beyond borders, and that has to be the case, of course, if you live in that country. Here, Shah Jahan and Mumtaz Mahal. This lady on the right, she is the one for whom her husband, King Shah Jahan, had to build the Taj Mahal. And why? Because when she died, think about it, in the birth of her 14th child. Okay, well, you've seen Taj Mahal too many times. She died in the 14th childbirth. And the King Shah Jahan, her husband, he went crazy. And so the story is, or the legend is, or the myth is, in his strained mental condition, he envisioned this great monument. And then he asked his architects to give him one, make possible what he had dreamed of. And so they say, okay. They asked him, this is the thing you want? And he said, yes, this is the thing I want. So it's called also, the Taj Mahal is called also the marble, the dream in marble. And it's made of, complete of white marble. Let's see further what we have. Well, I'm glad. Coming to the end review, what we did was the Ottoman Empire in Turkey, the Safavids in Iran, and the Mughals in Persia. Each empire was multi-ethnic and multi-religious. All were military empires and fought against non-Muslim and Muslim enemies. Left an enormous legacy of arts, unbelievable, what the three had created. Here comes a reaction report at you. Write brief notes on any two aspects of any two of the three Muslim empires. The Ottoman Empire in Eastern Europe, the Safavid Empire in Iran and Caucasus, and the Mughal Empire in India and Pakistan. Any question, any comments, please go to Laulima, check your assignment, and send me any message that you might have. And thank you very much for tuning in. Aloha.